me, well, what is Sway? Why are we using Sway? And what on earth does it do? Then we'll have a deeper look at how to create a Sway, and I've got an example that we'll go through. And then finally, we'll look at how you can share Sways and export them out to other applications in Office 365. It's quite a versatile thing. So we'll have question and answers at the end, but as I said, pop them in the chat because we can go and pick those up on the way through. We've also got Romy on the call today, and she works for Turnitin too. So if it's something that goes in the chat and it's very straightforward or not necessarily technical relating to Sway, she might pop a response over to you, or she'll just signify that I will answer it at the end. But we will do our best to help you if you do have questions. So the one thing to say is that Sway itself is very much an alternative to traditional presentations. So we have had death by PowerPoint in many cases, whether that's in school or in our professional lives, or we are working with other schools in a trust, for instance. And what Sway offers you is a really quick alternative way to get a presentation pulled together, but it makes it more interactive. It's also a way of bridging the gap towards sort of website design, and it flows up and down the page, but elements of it will jump out at you. It might have animations built in. It just makes it really interesting. And I'm not saying PowerPoint isn't, because good PowerPoints are fine, but unfortunately all too often we're subjected to bad PowerPoints, or someone reading off the slides where it being a really boring slide with lots of very dense small text, and it's not just making a interesting, engaging presentation. So Sways do make for an engaging presentation, and they're quite versatile in their use. So you can use it on the educational side of the school. I am an ex-teacher myself, so I've used this in classroom situations, and pupils readily pick it up and they run with it. Also, it could be used in other areas of the school. So quite often now I see schools adopting Sways for newsletters, and they can be really engaging for parents, and quite different in the way they look every week. So it mixes it up a bit. It's not always the same format, and you can remix by just a click of a button, and we'll cover that during the session. So Sways are a flow, whereas PowerPoint's more of a step-by-step jump through different elements. And the way that we create Sway is we add cards, and we'll look at how we're doing that in a moment, but also Sways can easily be shared out, whereas you need to save a PowerPoint file and send it to someone, or send them a link to share it if using something like OneDrive. I'm going to jump out of the presentation now and just move over to the Sway itself. So for those of you that aren't familiar, depending on where you come into your Office 365, you might arrive here at the landing page where you've got all the apps, or you might well be in something like Outlook already, which is your email online. And then Sway is normally set here as one of your preferred apps in what's called the App Launcher. So that thing that I've just clicked on in the top left-hand corner is the App Launcher. Amongst things in there are all the other apps in Office 365. If you can't see it, you'll need to click down here to All Apps, and then it will be listed down the bottom under Sway. When you click it, it will open up a new tab, and you'll be brought to a page that will look something similar to this. So by default, it will ask you whether you want to make a new Sway, or you want to start from a document, because you can upload, or you can go through templates. Here are your recently created Sways. If you've got some Sways that are important, you can pin them. So it saves you having to delve through the recent ones or look at all the other ones that you've got there. And they're instantly there at the top. So the newsletter one is one that I see pinned quite frequently. Down at the bottom here, you've got Microsoft featured Sways, and they're often promoted depending on themed days, or if it's a particular event in a month, and then they get pinned under the bottom and they change when you come back in. If you want to see all of the Sway types, click the button there and it goes to a big list. Equally, if you want to see more templates, click the button here and it'll go to the templates online. So templates are really useful if it suits your need, and it will give you, like the newsletter one there, a quick layout with all the predetermined presets. So you just got to worry about the content, and you don't have to worry about changing the settings. At this point, I'll also mention there is a Sway desktop app that you can install. So if you did a search online in your web browser, you would end up finding the download and install. If you've got permissions from your IT company, if it's a school laptop, you can install that. I have got the desktop version, but I tend to use the online version. They've got the same features anyway, but any changes are more frequently applied in the online version before it gets rolled out to the desktop version. but it suits your needs, whichever one you prefer to work in. The interface is broadly the same as well, so there's not a lot of difference between the two. Just depends whether you want to use one installed on your computer or whether you prefer to use the one built into the web browser. If I wanted to make a new sway, all I do is click on blank sway, up it comes. By default, I'll get what's called the first card. So cards, think of them like Lego bricks. Cards stack up together, but instead of Lego bricks starting at the base and working vertically upwards, these cards start at the top and they then stack downwards, and that builds up the flow of your sway. So the first one you get is a header, and you can just type text in here. So this is the header heading, and you've got options for formatting and things like backgrounds, and we'll look at those in a bit more detail in a moment. If you want to add another card in, as I'm being prompted here because it thinks it's my first sway, I press the plus button. I get suggested cards that I could add, but hidden behind here I've got different types of cards which are grouped by text, media, and groups themselves. So you can have a main heading, that's a full title heading, or you can have text. Once you've added in a main heading, it will also give the option for what's called heading 2. That's a subheading. Media is pretty flexible as to what you can put into a sway. So you can create your own images and add them in, or you can use images from online. You can bring them in from your OneDrive, or you can upload them from your computer, which you can also achieve there over on the end. You can embed videos directly from YouTube, or you can also import videos if you got them saved on your computer. You can pop in audio, so it likes MP3s. It also likes something called WAV format, WAV from Microsoft. It is a little bit fussier on there, but they will go in quite happily. You can embed code from other websites or URLs, like addresses up here. So if you want to have links to other websites directly in your sway because you want someone to click on it and just go to it, that's quite easy to achieve. You can also group automatically. So if you've got a bunch of cards, you can use this automatic and it will group it in the best way it sees fit, depending on the type of cards you've got in the content. You can have grid views where you've got little thumbnails. Comparisons, you'll look at an example, but you can slide a comparison of a picture backwards and forwards. Stacks stack up groups of cards on top of each other, so you don't have them all cluttered with one big row down below, but they are syncing on top. And slideshows are primarily for pictures, where you can go through a slideshow of pictures. If you want to see what your sway looks like, you press the play button up there, and we'll come back to the share options, which can be found there in a bit. So just a bit of orientation about what we're doing in our sway. If you want to get back to where you were, you can either click the sway button there, or when you go to the editor, it does open up a new tab in your browser. So if you want to get back to the tab where you were, you click the one next to it and it's still left there untouched. So I'm just going to jump into a mock newsletter that I've made for Turn It On. And it's an imaginary one saying we're going to create a coding club. So here is my header. Something to show you is that the cards are collapsed in on themselves and there are subsections to the cards. And if you press the arrow in the top right-hand corner, sorry, top left-hand corner, if I can work out my left from right today, you'll see in there is the header. There's the image of that's going to go behind the header, and I'm going to call it Coding Edition as the name of that image. And I've also got the logo for the company. All of those things sit nested on top of each other there. And then I've got a text box here, and then I've got another header and so forth. So it builds up with cards going through. And what you get, just to show you an example, when you press play, you see what you've built. So here it says Turn It On Newsletter. That was my background image. Here is my little logo that I've got. So all of that was everything in the header card. Then down here underneath, here was my text card. I've got World of Wonder underneath. There's my main header saying welcome. That's a text card with a picture in it because we're looking at coding and we're using block-based coding in a program called Scratch. Here is a comparison example. So I want someone to code a virtual primary school or secondary school. So I've just created a sliding card there to compare the two. And then underneath here, I'd give some instructions about how to build in my coding challenge. And to get back to my editor, I just press the button there. Then all of a sudden I'm back over in my editor. If I wanted to go back to the one I was editing on the other side, it's there as a sway. If I want to get rid of it, I just close it down, but it's not lost because it's saving all the time. You're in what's called the storyline. The storyline is that flow of your sway, and it's where you stack your cards together. If you decided you want to add an additional card in between content you've already got, you just press the plus, and then it will force another card in between the two cards that are there. I said it was really easy to remix your sway on the fly. So in half a lesson, I've sometimes got laptops out with pupils that I've used this before with, and they're familiar with the way that sway is let out, and they can quickly knock up a sway, and it's really good for then at the end of the lesson, if you're having a plenary to check consolidation of learning, they can choose the content to go into the sway, but what sway takes care of is the building. So in a PowerPoint, you'd have to worry about every minute detail. You'd have to choose what font you were using, the color of the font. Sway does that for you. If you're someone who likes to have control, it can be a little bit annoying, but you'll get used to the fact, and you almost have to sit back and let Sway make some choices for you, and it will make the right choices based on the content in there. If you hit the styles over here in the top right hand corner, in there you can choose whether your sway is going to now continue to scroll vertically. You can have also for it to scroll horizontally left to right, or you can have it as individual slides and more of a traditional PowerPoint element. So that changes the flow of your sway itself. Over here, you've got predetermined themes, and the themes scroll off on the side there, and they will load up depending on the speed of your broadband connection. And what you can do is you can quickly change the theme you've got, and it will change the entire theme of your sway in one click. I won't do it just yet because it's gonna overwrite some of the things I'm going to show you, but then that will change, for instance, the font you'll use, the colors in the background. It may bring in a different default picture. So I would do that earlier in the build rather than later in the build of your sway, but you can move between them. You think, oh, actually, that's the one I want for the purpose of this sway. And it's all done for you. Takes care of everything. But if you then want to change, for instance, I used style 3 there. If I wanted to change to that style there, it's one click, slightly change the font and the emphasis there, change the colors of the background. It will slightly change the flow of the layout. And it's all there for you. If I want to change back to where I was, I click the orange one and it's implemented back there. So you've got lots of different ways that you can quickly change the content in your sway. Up there, you've got a remix button. So if you click the remix button, what it will do is it entirely remix how your sway looks. And then all of a sudden, I've got a very different way of looking at it. It's now implemented scrolling left to right. It's got the up and down. And you can undo it if you don't like it, because there's the undo button up there. So I press undo, and it'll bring me back to how it was before. But you can get an idea of how it remixes. So pupils tend to like using the remix because it quickly gives them the ability to change all of their content, but they don't have to worry about changing the content. The Sway does it for them. So the Styles tab you find by going to Design, and then when you want to get back to building, you must go back to Storyline, otherwise you can't see the cards. So if I wanted to add another card down here, I might say, here is my subheading. It's called Coding Design. And can I create a Scratch maze? I then might want to embed a coding link. So I can click on the coding link there. I can change the size of the link. I can also change the text. So if I went back here to the heading card, I might say, well, that's all well and good. I've got my words coding design, but I want to emphasize it. Emphasize is a little bit like bold. It makes it a bigger text style here, but when you look at it in a live real-time sway, it makes it pop out from the sway a little bit more, emphasizes it in the flow. Accent is also like italics in a traditional sense, but then in the flow of the text, it makes it slightly more italic and changes the emphasis a little bit more as well. So those two play around with them, and they're quickly applied. If I wanted to have a background for this section, I click background. Up will come my image search. It automatically decides to try and predict what sort of images I want based on the words that I've got in my cards, in my sway. If you want to override that, you can search up here in the box. So I might want Scratch coding. And then I press the search button. So the great thing about it is you haven't got pupils or staff having to go off and look for content in other places. You search from within the sway. You don't need to open up another tab on the browser, start looking for it, save it to your computer, upload it again. You may legitimately have something you couldn't get online and you do want to upload it, but quite often I never leave I never leave Sway to go looking for something like Scratch. It's all there, so I'm just going to pop it in. So I'm going to say that's my coding algorithm. I press add, and it puts it in there for me. So I've now got my headings card. Want to get rid of that on the side. I'm going to scroll back down, and very quickly in there I've got coding design, and everything's inside of my card here. If I want to collapse that back in, there's my header. So now I am going to put in media. Let's say I want to find a video. In here is a video. So I might have a Scratch tutorial. I'm going to choose a Scratch tutorial. There's the tutorial, and I'm going to add in there, please watch the video to understand steps in the creation. And it's in there. I might want to put an accent on that, and I might want to put it in bullets because I'm going to have some more going in there soon. And that's quite a good, pleasing start for me. So now I'm going to go back to play. I'm going to scroll down. Here's all the content I had before. And there is my image. Okay, that image doesn't quite suit what I wanted. It's a bit bigger than I anticipated. I've got my title there of coding design, and there's my video. And if I clicked it, it would start changing it. So I want to go back. That's too big for my liking. I want that to sit more comfortably next to the heading of coding design. So I'm going to go back into edit. I'm going to go over here to, here's my header card up here. And I'm going to choose in my header card, I come out of there and I click on that. I'm going to change my focus point on there. So this focus is in where you want to focus on the image. So if I wanted the focus to be in the center, I can have the focus there. I can also change how that is displayed at the same time. So you've got lots of options about whether you want it to be full screen or not full screen, or as a thumbnail next to the side of the words coding design. So there's quite a few possibilities about how you edit it and also about how you add content to it. Some of the other ones, so if I click here, I want an entire new group. I'm going to put in a main heading one. So you can see I've got a gap between there. So I'm going to have share your projects. And I might decide I'm going to have a subheading underneath there, so text, heading 2. So we're going to have primary school projects. And I'm also going to have another heading here. It's going to be a text heading. Heading 2 is going to be secondary school projects. Someone's just got their mic on there. Are they able to mute it just to eliminate the background noise? And we'll press play. And now we go down and down the bottom here, I've now got my main heading. There it is. Here are my subheadings. So I'm ready to add some sections in there. More than that, I would say one of the things I would say is your follow-up for today is just to create a test sway and mess around with it. It's one of the things at first, it is a little bit different. So it will take a bit of getting your head around about how it's changed. So you can see there, I changed my coding design by changing the layout and the focal point. I now see part of my picture. That might not suit it again. So I might need to go back and change it so it's just a square picture over on the side and it sits to the right-hand side of coding design. But it was only a couple of clicks, and a couple of clicks change your content and make it display the way that you want really quickly. Hidden in there, you can change the settings on your sway really easily. So in here, there's another way to change the layout. You can also switch off the animations if you don't want it to be animated. You can have it to loop. So when someone reads it and they get to the bottom, it takes them back to the top. But that's useful for things like presentation evenings at school. If you want a sway to be there and no one needs to be staffing it, but it just keeps going around in circles, that's a really useful application of that. So if I go back to the edit, there's elements we haven't yet looked at, and that is the share options. So if you want to share it, you can share it with specific people in your school or groups of people. So if in your email settings you've got maths teachers or Key Stage 2, you can maybe share it because maybe you're doing a project in year or something, you want to build one of these. You can have it so that people can view, or they can also have joint edit rights. You need to be careful to pick the correct one there. Gives you a copy link, and you can either email that out directly to people in your organization. So if I look for maybe Daryl, who's in my organization, I could invite him to come and view it. Or if I wanted him to collaborate with me, because maybe I'm on a job share with him in my class, I can now give him editing rights. He'll get that, and it'll come up over here in his recent sways, and it'll be there because he's been sharing them with, I've shared it with him, and he can option more options down here. Viewers can see the share button. So once I share it with Daryl, if I want him to be able to share it onwards again, I can give him the share button option. If I tick that, he'll be able to share it onwards. But if I leave it unticked, he'll be able to collaborate on it, but he won't be able to share it onwards with someone else. So you've got a degree of control over how you share it. Something to highlight, and I usually do with Office 365, I'd avoid using the bottom option, because if you make that link open for anyone, absolutely anyone who happens to pick this up from an email, if you gave editing rights, will be able to go in and change your sway around. So just be careful. I would use one of the two options about someone already in your school organization or specific people that you want to invite. There's a few more options over here in the dots. So when you click that, to get back to your sways quickly, you can go to there. To create a new sway, you can go to there. Those options are over in that previous tab there at the same time, but it saves you having to leave your sway. You can save your sway as a template. So if, for instance, you're using this as a school newsletter week on week, you might want to get your default layout sorted that you are going to tweak with the remix tools, but you want to have that as a template you pick up every week when you come in to do the newsletter. So saving it as a template means you've got sway templates. You can print a sway, but I don't see a great deal of mileage in that. It comes out as a very static, boring thing. And the whole idea of sways is they're interactive, they're animated, they bring emphasis to certain aspects, and you lose all of that when you print it. The same with export. If you export, you get the sway as a PDF, and it's a bit like on a piece of paper. A sway on a PDF just comes out as a printed document, and you lose all the emphasis and the interesting elements about the interactivity of a sway. In settings for sway, you've got some further options in there, like languages for display, so you can have other languages. It doesn't have to be just English. So if you're hitting EAL pupils or parents that you need to reach with a sway, you can have sways produced in other languages so that they can just pick it up and see it from there. You can have text direction buttons, so that means that they can change their different languages from the top of the sway. You've also got options down here that viewers can change the layout on their own, or you can untick it so they have to see it in the view that you want. There's also another way there to get the autoplay, which was duplicated in the way when you were viewing the sway. So sometimes in sways, there's two ways to get to the same options, depending on whether you're in the editor mode here in Storyline or whether you're in the play mode to preview what it would look like. Accessibility view takes you into a minimized view, getting rid of some of the features such as the background colors and the animations to make it less busy, for want of a better word. It's more of a static experience, but it makes it more accessible for people that maybe can't cope with everything flying around, or they'd like it on a particularly colored background or a white background. It gets rid of things like the sliding tool, so they just see the two images in a static form. The picture's there and it's locked in, and the video's locked in place there. So there's an accessibility mode. What Sway doesn't have yet is Immersive Reader. So Immersive Reader would take you into a separate suite of learning tools from Microsoft where it could read the text to you. It doesn't have that built in yet. I know quite a few people are requesting that Microsoft have Immersive Reader built in here, so that might come at a later date. If you want to find a sway that you've used previously, you've got a find button down there. And if you are absolutely stuck, the help for going into Sway's tutorials or asking questions are down there, and it will then direct you to Microsoft support articles. So if I go back to edit, we've then covered share, we've covered the options there, we've got the sways, we've looked at how to insert new elements there. That's how to insert pictures and get media in. That's really quick and from inside the application itself. Design, when you click on design, it takes you away from the storyline, but that allows you to change the styles of your sway, and very quick and easily with different clicks in between, and then change your flow of your sway. And the last thing to do would be just to start to share it in another application. So sways will sit quite nicely within Teams. So I quite often add a sway as a different way of introduced learning for a day. I might put it in one of my class teams, and I want my pupils to go in and just read through the sway, and that sets up what I want them to do for the day, whether it's in a particular subject or it's an overarching week project, so they can go back to it. I've used it with staff for internal newsletters, external newsletters. There's so many possibilities about what you do with your sways and how you want to bring them in across the school. I would say start small at first. If you're not used to doing this previously and you haven't used sways, I would have a go privately before you start to suggest how it could be rolled out. But if you're already doing it in school and maybe it's just in the admin team and you use it there, then it's think about, could the teaching staff or the support staff start to use it in that side of the school, and just have a go. It's pretty much open for interpretation. It's not intimidating. If you make a change, you can always revert back, but exploring the changes are one click, and it means a very little input from you to get quite a pleasing output. At that point, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm just going to see if anyone's put any questions in the chat. So it's over to you. I will answer the questions that are over here in the chat on the side, but also I'm quite happy for anyone to unmute their mic. So I've got one question here from Elizabeth, and you've asked, how do you share so that children can view the presentation on the website without having to log into Sway? So that's done from the share link. Let me reshare quickly. Over here. So if I was in my Sway and I was going share, you put your share link in, and that share link then you can put into your team, or you can put into whatever you're doing, whether it's a Word document or a different type of presentation. Put that share link in there, copy it from the side. You can put it in as a hyperlink so you don't see that horrible string of text, but you might add it to a word like please click here, and the here is the Sway link. And when they click the here button, it opens up the Sway as a tab in their web browser, and it just does that on their computer for them. They don't need to worry about navigating out to Sway. It takes care of all of that in one click. Just going to unshare my screen. Someone else's one. Sorry, slightly off topic. Is there a way that I can have 3 Microsoft accounts and switch between them on one laptop? Yes, you can. So let me reshare my screen with you. Sorry, I didn't get who asked that question there. So you'll notice at the moment I'm in an in private session. One of the things you can do on a web browser, so I'm in my normal version of the Edge web browser here. So you can use the normal version as one browser. So you could have one Sway here logged in with one account. You then click the dots up there and you can have a new in private window. And then you could have another web browser, such as I've got Chrome down there, and you could be logged in Chrome in another account, and in Chrome it's got another sort of private viewing mode called incognito. So in fact you could have 4 different accounts going on at once if you wished, and you could be editing lots of different Sways or looking how it looks from a pupil point of view and a staff point of view. So there's quite a bit of flexibility around that. Anybody like to unmute their mic and ask any more questions? Sorry, Matt, it was you. Anybody who'd like to share any experiences with using Sway? It doesn't have to be just me imparting knowledge here. If anyone's already doing it, or they've had some amazing success using it with pupils, or they've got parents engaged by using it, or anything like that, please unmute and do share it with us, because I'd love to hear. Okay, you don't have to if you don't want to. All I will say then is thank you for coming along to this session. We will remain in the chat for a little while in the meeting. So Romy will be here and I will be here. But thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining in. I really appreciate you giving up the time to still continually come to these. So I can see some people on here that have been quite a few times before, and others of you are new. You are always more than welcome. Even if you don't have Office 365 and you've got G Suite and Google, you can still come and have a look and see what the other side's got to offer. Next week, we will continue with 2 more webinars. On Monday, we'll be looking at organization of files and sharing files using OneDrive. So that's going to be the Monday session in Office 365. Some of you will be doing that. Others of you won't have dabbled with that. We'll look at some more advanced features in there. And then on Wednesday, we'll have another session, and that will be around Google G Suite. We won't have one on Friday because we're all going to have a day off and it will be bank holiday, but then we'll be back again the week after for 3 in that week. I got one more question from Matt. Matt, you've just added, is there a way that you can do that on the laptop app? Sorry, you can't do that on the Sway laptop app. You can only have those multiple windows open by opening in the web browser, Matt. Not a problem, Matt. Okay, I will let you all leave if you wish, or you are welcome to stay. We will end the meeting at a certain point, which will log you all out of the meeting. But again, if anyone wants to stay as other people drop off, I'm more than happy to talk to people about individual questions. Thank you for coming.